Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In this video we'll have a look at a game between two players who we have not yet covered in our recaps, namely Awonder Liang and Levon Aronian. So Levon is one of the favorites for this tournament and he's only on 50%, so he cannot be too happy about that. And Awonder is also 50%, but for him it's a pretty decent result so far. But let's see what happened in this game. So Awonder opened the game up with e4, and Levon sticks to his traditional 1 e5, Nf3 and Knight c6. And we've seen a lot of, reload passes, slow Italians, but in this game Awonder has other intentions. He plays the move d4, and after takes he does not play the Scotch, he plays the Scotch Gambit. Now after the move bishop c4, here the other main move is the move knight f6 to hit this pawn over here. White can play e5 to hit this knight, and black generally proceeds with d5, bishop e5, and knight e4. And black is supposed to be okay here, according to theory. Or after knight f6, the move short castles can also be played, and after knight takes c4, there's rook e1, d5, takes, knight c3 hitting the queen, and black moves the queen somewhere. It can go to a5, h5, d7, or d8. And according to theory, black is fine here as well. But Levon plays the move bishop to c5. And here Awonder plays knight to g5. And actually, funnily enough, Magnus Carlsen had this position against Vidit in the Tata Steel Rapid and Blitz in India. And Magnus actually offered a draw here after the move knight to g5. And Vidit was a little bit confused, but finally he accepted the draw. And when he did, Magnus said, "I have a terrible stomach," and walked away. Anyway, for a long time, that used to be Magnus's shortest game of his career, until that infamous game against Hans Niemann in the Julius Baer Cup, where he resigned on move 2. But Levon plays the move knight h6, which is forced to defend this pawn on f7. Awonder takes. He sacrifices a piece, but now he has the move queen h5 check to win this bishop back on c5. Black goes g6, takes, and here things look pretty good for white, right? I mean, the material is equal, black's king is a little bit exposed, but black has this very important move d5, breaking in the center. And if white takes, there is the move rook e8, and now white's king is in trouble. If you go king d1, black has rook e5, gets the pawn back, and at the end of the day, black's king will find safety on g8. On the other hand, white's king will be stuck in the center. So Awonder played the move c3, takes, and now goes short castles. And I believe here Levon already made a slight inaccuracy. Given the fact that his king is a little bit more exposed, he should have played the move queen d6, which is also the main move, I believe. Here white generally takes on d4, and plays knight to c3. And white still has a small initiative in the endgame because the king is a little bit exposed. The pawns are a little bit weak, but black's up a pawn, and generally the position is equal here. But Levon seemed to be out of book and played the move rook to e8. Right, it looks pretty logical, bring the rook into the game. Now you can go king g8, and your rook is not blocked in when you do so. But this is an inaccuracy. Awonder takes, queen takes, and now plays queen to g5. And all of a sudden we see how tricky this position is. Black is up a pawn, but the dark squares around the black king will always be super weak. And here I was expecting Levon to play a logical move like bishop f5, or bring the bishop into the game. White probably plays something like knight to c3, and here, I don't know, maybe rook a8, bring this rook into the game as well, or maybe king g8. But again, white always has a pretty annoying initiative. After something like queen h4, hitting the pawn, the bishop will come in, maybe rook d1. And again, this position is not a whole lot of fun for black. But Levon played the move knight b4. And with the move knight b4, he's starting to go knight c2 and trap this rook in the corner. So you'd expect a move like knight c3. Right, but I think here Levon was planning to go knight d3, maybe try to take away the bishop so white can no longer attack on those dark squares. And if white goes bishop e3, to move queen e5, to offer a queen trade. And black seems to be doing alright. The queen is pretty active here. The knight on d3 is doing a good job of restricting white's pieces. But Awonder found a great move. He played the move bishop d2. Alright, so he's hitting the knight. But this also involves a rook sacrifice. Black can play knight c2, and his rook in the corner will be trapped. But if you do so, white's going to go bishop c3. Hit your queen, and again, we can see the dark squares around the black king are super weak. If you go back to d6, white just goes queen h6. And again, how is this king going to find safety? If black takes a rook over here, white takes, king e6, and something like knight a3. Again, if white takes his knight, he's only down in exchange, and his king is taken for a pawn. The computer gives a +7 advantage here for white. It's completely winning. So Levon realized he cannot do that. He played the move queen to d6. Now Awonder plays knight c3, because if he goes bishop c3 here, black can just step back and maybe knight d5 later and try to get rid of this bishop over here. But Awonder played knight c3, also going to bring the knight into the game. Now c6 by Levon, and Awonder goes rook a1, bringing his rook into the game. And Levon goes bishop f5, because he's worried that, you know, later down the line white might go f3 and open up the f line. But white could actually still have played f3, which is pretty strong here. And black's in a bit of trouble. If black takes, you take with the rook. And again, you have this nasty pin along the f-file. And stepping the king in the way, that doesn't help. Because white can take and black cannot take because the king will be in check. And if black goes e3, trying to keep the f-file closed, white goes knight e4, hitting the queen. And if you take, white takes with a check. If the king g8, white can take this pawn over here. And again, the king is super weak. The queen can go to b3 with a check on the king and attacking the knight. And again, black is just completely lost here, it seems, even though the material is equal. But Awonder also plays a good move. He plays the move g4, hitting the bishop. And Levon saw himself forced to go h6, queen h4. And the problem for black is here that he cannot play the move g5. Because if you go g5, white just goes queen g3, hitting the queen. And if you take, white takes with the f-pawn. And the bishop is pinned, and white wins a piece and wins the game. So Levon saw himself forced to go bishop c8 all the way back. But of course this cannot be good. Now Awonder took this pawn on h6, and again we can already see how this king is just losing its shelter. So Levon played knight at d3, blocking the d-file. Awonder goes bishop g5, clearing the way for the queen. Levon goes queen e5, so he can meet queen h7 check with queen at g7. But now Awonder goes f3. And black cannot stop white from opening up the f-file. You cannot go e3 anymore because then you hang your knight. So Levon played rook h8, hitting the queen. Now Awonder took over here with a check. So the king stepped back. And now bishop h6. Another great move by Awonder. He's clearing the way for the queen. So Levon gets a check over here. And he also defends the knight. King h1 by Awonder. And he goes bishop e6, bringing his bishop back into the game. But now Awonder goes queen to g5, hitting this pawn over here, which would lead to a checkmating attack. And if black goes king h7 to defend, white has rook f6, hitting this, taking the bishop, and again, it's just completely falling apart for black. So Levon played bishop f7, guarding this pawn over here, but Awonder went boom, rook takes f7. And again, what does black do? I mean, if you take the rook, there's rook f1 check. If you go knight f2, then white just goes king g2, and the attack continues. There's no stopping down. And if black goes king e8, then you take here, and again, it just completely falls apart. King d8, there's bishop g7, for example, hitting the queen, hitting the rook, and black can already resign here. So Levon played rook takes h6, trying to get rid of the bishop, and now Awonder played another fantastic move. He played rook takes d3, hitting the queen. Black has to take, and now queen f6. And how are you going to stop this checkmate over here? Black also doesn't have any good checks with the queen, because f1 is covered, d1 is covered, and b1 is covered. So you cannot do that. And if you go rook h7, then there's queen takes g6, and you get checkmated. So Levon played rook takes h2, Awonder took, he gave a check on d2, but now Awonder played king g1, queen c1 check, king f2, queen h6, and g5, hitting the queen, because if the queen moves, white will get a checkmate, and Levon resigned. Because you can give a check over here, but the white king can always walk out of it. For example, there's king e1, queen g3, king d2, check. And black runs out of checks very quickly because the f2 check is never available. And if you go to g2, the king sits pretty safe over here. And in the meantime, black gets checkmated. A wonderful win for Awonder Liang. I mean, I had to throw that one in there. Absolutely amazing game. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.